A genuine alliance, not the one-sided arrangement we initially offered, but a true partnership. TAC activated a small projector showing a section of star map. The Graxian Imperium faces challenges beyond your current understanding. Species more advanced than ourselves are pressing our borders. Your adaptive capabilities, your problem-solving under pressure, these could benefit both our peoples. Han considered his words carefully. And if we refuse, then I would be replaced by someone who would follow orders without question. 2 weeks later, representatives from Earth's nations gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations. After extensive negotiations, a new interstellar agreement was ready for signing. Not the subjugation the Graxians had initially planned, but a genuine alliance based on mutual respect and recognition of different forms of strength. As Captain Han signed the treaty on behalf of Earth, she smiled at Commander Tak. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't visible until you know exactly what to look for. Tak nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in her words. His own signature on the document represented more than just an alliance. It was an acknowledgement that the Graxian way was not the only path forward in the galaxy. Later, as the Graxian delegation prepared to return to their ship, Dal approached his commander privately. The High Command will not be pleased. No, Tak agreed. But they will adapt, as we all must. And if they don't? Tak looked back at the humans, celebrating their new place among the stars. Then perhaps it's time for the Imperium to learn from Earth's example. Their history shows that sometimes the greatest progress comes from challenging old ways of thinking. As the Graxian ship rose into the sky, humans around the world watched with a new understanding. They had been underestimated, tested, and pushed to their limits. And in responding to that challenge, they had revealed not just their resilience, but their greatest strength. The ability to see potential where others saw only weakness. The end, not directly, Kim replied. But we've been studying Graxian technology since they arrived. I believe we can create a counter-resonance field that will neutralize the effects. The teams worked around the clock, combining knowledge of quantum physics, engineering, and the fragments of Graxian technology they had managed to study. Han coordinated the global response, ensuring resources flowed where needed while keeping the public calm with carefully worded statements. From orbit, Commander Tak and Science Officer Dal watched the human response with growing interest. They're attempting to contain it, Dal observed, monitoring the energy readings. Their approach is creative. They're combining multiple technologies in ways we wouldn't have considered. Will they succeed? Tak asked. Unknown. The device was designed to exceed their technological capabilities. 3 days later, something unexpected happened. The energy field stopped expanding. Sensors showed a counter-resonance field forming around it, perfectly calibrated to neutralize the Graxian device's effects. Impossible, Dal whispered, checking the readings again. They shouldn't have been able to understand the quantum mechanics involved, let alone develop a countermeasure so quickly. Even more surprising, the counterfield began slowly compressing the affected zone, pushing it back toward the center of the island. They're not just containing it, Tak observed. They're reversing it. Dal ran a deeper scan of the human operation. Commander, you need to see this. He brought up detailed images of the human teams. They've improved our containment algorithms. The approach they're using is more efficient than our standard protocols. Tak stared at the screen. How? They had limited exposure to our technology. They're combining ideas from different scientific disciplines we keep separate, Dal explained, his voice revealing growing excitement. They have physicists working alongside biologists, engineers collaborating with medical doctors. The cross-disciplinary approach is yielding solutions we wouldn't have considered. As they watched, the counterfield completely neutralized the Graxian device. Within 5 days, 9 days ahead of the timeline Lom had given, the crisis was resolved. But what shocked the Graxians most came from their final, most sophisticated scans. Dal called Tak to the laboratory, his antennae twitching rapidly in agitation. Commander, we've been missing something fundamental about humans. He displayed complex neural patterns on the main screen. These readings show something our technology barely registers because we have no equivalent to measure against. Explain, TAC demanded. They possess a unique capacity for empathy that extends beyond their species, Dal said. During the crisis, we recorded these neural patterns activating not just for other humans, but when facing any suffering. Some humans were as concerned about local wildlife as they were about potential human casualties. TAC studied the patterns. Why would they care about non-sentient life forms? That's just it. They extend consideration to entities beyond their immediate group. It's a capacity we've never documented in any other species, including ourselves. Dal hesitated. Our empire was built on the principle that stronger species naturally dominate weaker ones. These humans fundamentally reject that premise. TAC was silent for a long moment. The implications were clear. The High Command would see this empathy as a weakness to exploit. General Murr would advocate for immediate conquest, arguing that humans were too dangerous to allow their continued independent development. But TAC had seen what humans could accomplish when threatened. He had watched them solve problems his own scientists considered insurmountable. And now he understood that their apparent weakness, this capacity for empathy, might actually be their greatest strength. Against direct orders from the Imperium, TAC requested a private meeting with Captain Han. They'd met in a small room at the communications center, without aids or recording devices. Your species is unlike any we've encountered, TAC admitted, his normally formal posture relaxed for the first time. We came expecting to find servants but discovered potential allies instead. Han maintained a neutral expression. What does that mean for Earth? The High Command has ordered your planet's subjugation, TAC said directly. They fear your potential. But I believe that path would lead to unnecessary suffering on both sides. What do you propose? This compound has an unfortunate side effect, Han continued. It accelerates greenhouse gas effects, raising our planet's temperature by 2 degrees in just 72 hours. Left unchecked, it would trigger catastrophic climate change within weeks. And these energy signatures? TAC asked, his voice tense. Our solution, Han said simply. A globally coordinated atmospheric cleansing system. We've adapted your own scanning technology, which we recovered from the Siberian site, and reversed its function. Instead of marking neural patterns, it's now extracting your compound from our atmosphere. Dal was already checking readings. She's right, Commander. The compound levels are dropping rapidly. They've not only identified the chemical structure but developed a planet-wide solution in just 3 days. Han continued. We thought this might be a more productive demonstration of human capabilities than another military exchange. We don't want to fight you, Commander. We want to show you what humanity can offer as allies, not subjects. TAC stared at the screen, processing this development. The humans had taken Graxian technology, understood it, improved it, and deployed it globally in less time than it would have taken his own engineers to develop a prototype. And they'd done it not as an act of aggression, but as a demonstration of problem-solving. This council meeting will reconvene in 1 hour, TAC said finally. We have much to discuss. As the connection ended, Dal turned to his commander. This changes everything. If they can adapt our technology this quickly for peaceful purposes, then imagine what they could do in warfare, TAC finished. The military faction will see this as proof humans are too dangerous to allow them to develop further. Or, Dal suggested carefully, proof that they would make more valuable allies than any species we've encountered before. TAC gazed at the view screen, watching the energy patterns spread across Earth's surface. Prepare a full report for the High Command. Include everything. The atmospheric solution, their response time, the global coordination required. Leave nothing out. And your recommendation, Commander. TAC was silent for a long moment. I'm not certain yet, but I am certain of one thing. Underestimating these humans would be a grave mistake. The Graxian High Command remained divided. After 3 days of heated debate, they issued their final directive to Commander TAC. Conduct one last test of human capability before making a final determination about Earth's fate. We need conclusive evidence, Supreme Leader Vox told TAC via secure channel. Either these humans are too dangerous to allow their continued development, or they represent a valuable potential ally. TAC nodded. What test do you propose? Create a crisis, General Murr interjected. Something beyond their technological capacity to solve. Their failure will justify immediate action. The next day, a Graxian science vessel descended to an uninhabited island in the South Pacific. The ship deployed a device that began generating an expanding field of unstable energy. Within hours, the field had grown to cover the entire island, disrupting electronic equipment and causing dangerous radiation levels. Emissary Long contacted Earth's United Nations immediately. We regret to inform you of an unfortunate accident. One of our scientific devices has malfunctioned on an island in your Pacific Ocean. The technology is beyond your capacity to contain, but we will send a team to resolve the situation within 14 planetary days. Captain Han received the message in the command center. Dr. Kim was already analyzing data from the island. This is no accident, Kim said quietly when the transmission ended. The energy signature is completely stable. It's expanding exactly as programmed. Han nodded. It's their final test. She turned to the communications officer. Contact every nation with environmental response capabilities. We need their best scientists, engineers, and emergency personnel. And get me satellite imagery of that island. Within 12 hours, teams from 27 countries had assembled at the nearest safe location, an aircraft carrier positioned just outside the affected zone. Scientists from Japan, India, Russia, America, Brazil, and dozens of other nations worked together, setting aside political differences in the face of the crisis. Dr. Kim presented their findings to the assembled teams. The Graxian device is generating a cascading energy field that disrupts molecular bonds. If it continues expanding, it will eventually reach populated areas. Can we shut it down? Asked the lead French physicist. And if they prove too dangerous? General Murr asked. Then we will act accordingly, Vox said simply. The connection ended, leaving Tak and Dal alone on the bridge. They're afraid, Dal observed quietly. As they should be, Tak replied. Begin the advanced scanning immediately. Down on Earth, in a secured room beneath the Seoul Communication Center, Captain Han and Dr. Kim listened to the entire exchange. Earth's most brilliant hackers had managed to decrypt the Graxian communications channel days earlier, a fact they had carefully kept hidden. This confirms our suspicions, Han said, removing her headset. They're divided about how to proceed. Dr. Kim nodded grimly. General Murr seems eager to destroy us. But others see potential in alliance. Han stood up and paced the small room. We can use this. If we demonstrate our value as allies rather than subjects, we might sway their decision. How? They're still conducting scans. Any display of technology might just convince the military faction that we're too dangerous to leave alive. Han smiled slightly. Then we need to show them something their scans can't detect. Something uniquely human that would make us more valuable as friends than as conquered subjects. Later that day, Han proposed her plan to Earth's Security Council, representatives from 30 nations, gathered via secure video link. The Graxians are conducting advanced scans of our neural pathways and psychological responses, she explained. They've discovered our adaptability, but there's something else they're missing. Something their science doesn't even have a framework to understand. What's that? Asked the American representative. Hope, Han said simply. What their scanners call hope-fueled determination. Our ability to face impossible odds because we believe things can improve. It's a psychological resilience that defies their logical prediction models. And how do we demonstrate this? The Chinese representative asked skeptically. Han outlined her bold plan. It would require global cooperation on an unprecedented scale, a display of human ingenuity that would demonstrate their worth as equals, not subordinates. It's risky, the Russian representative noted. If they interpret this as a threat. They won't, Han assured them, because we'll be solving a problem they created, but in a way they never anticipated. After heated debate, the council approved her plan. For the next 3 days, nations around the world coordinated in secret while maintaining normal negotiations with the Graxian delegation. Meanwhile, aboard the mothership, Dal reported his findings to Commander Tak. The advanced scans reveal something extraordinary, he said, bringing up complex neural mappings on the main display. Humans possess what can only be described as hope-fueled determination, a psychological state that actually enhances their cognitive and physical capabilities when facing seemingly impossible odds. That doesn't make logical sense, Tak objected. Hopeless situations should trigger surrender instincts. Not in humans. Dal highlighted several brain patterns. When we present their simulation models with no-win scenarios, they consistently refuse to accept defeat. Instead, they imagine alternative approaches, create new solutions, or accept significant self-sacrifice to achieve even partial success. Tak studied the patterns. This is why our intimidation tactics failed. Precisely. And there's more. Dal changed the display to show historical data. Their greatest leaps in technology, art, and social organization emerged during their darkest periods. They've faced extinction-level events multiple times and emerged stronger each time. The communication system chimed, interrupting their discussion. "Commander," said the bridge officer, "we're detecting unusual activity on the planet's surface. Massive energy signatures at multiple locations, all activating simultaneously." Tak rushed to the bridge, Dal following close behind. The main view screen showed energy patterns appearing across Earth's surface, in deserts, oceans, and polar regions. "Is it a weapon?" Tak demanded. The tactical officer analyzed the readings. "Unknown, Commander. The energy signature doesn't match any weapon system in our database. They appear to be atmospheric processors of some kind." "Open a channel to Captain Han immediately," Tak ordered. Han's face appeared on the screen, looking calm despite the tension. "Commander Tak, I assume you're calling about our global initiative. Explain these energy signatures immediately," Tak demanded. "Of course," Han replied. 3 days ago, your science vessel released a compound into our upper atmosphere. We detected it immediately, a chemical marker that your scanners use to track neural responses." Tak glanced at Dal, who nodded confirmation. "They'll discover our adaptability," Han finished. "Exactly." Kim looked worried. "They'll learn that humans thrive under pressure. They might change tactics." Han considered this. Maybe that's not a bad thing. If they understand us better, perhaps they'll see the value in true cooperation rather than conquest. Or they might decide we're too dangerous to negotiate with, Kim countered. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call. Han answered to find the UN Secretary General on the screen. "Captain, the Graxians have requested an emergency meeting. Their commander wishes to attend personally." Han exchanged glances with Kim. They found something. "Prepare the team. I want you there too, Doctor." 2 hours later, Han sat across from Commander Tak in the Grand Conference Room. The tension was palpable. Tak's posture was different from previous meetings, less dismissive, more alert. "We have reevaluated our approach," Tak began without preamble. "Our initial assessment of your species was incomplete." Han kept her expression neutral. "In what way?" Tak gestured to Dal, who activated a holographic display showing human neural pathways compared to Graxian ones. "Your species possesses unique adaptive capabilities we fail to detect with our standard equipment." "You're only now discovering this?" Han asked, allowing a hint of surprise to enter her voice. "You knew?" Dal's antennae twitched in surprise. "Of course." Han smiled slightly. "It's our history. Humans have faced extinction many times, Commander. Each crisis made us stronger, more innovative, more determined. Tak leaned forward. Your historical records indicate your greatest technological leaps occurred during periods of extreme stress. Your space program accelerated during your Cold War. Your medical advances during plagues. Your communication systems during isolation. We work well under pressure, Han said simply. Your people don't just work under pressure, you thrive on it, Tak said. This changes our assessment of Earth's potential value to the Imperium. Han noticed the shift immediately. No longer were they talking about conquest. Now it was value to the Imperium. The scans had revealed something that made the Graxians reconsider their approach. We are prepared to offer more equitable terms, Tak continued. An alliance rather than a protectorate arrangement. Han nodded slowly. That's a start. But true allies respect each other's autonomy. The meeting continued for hours, with both sides adjusting their positions. As they left, Dr. Kim whispered to Han, "They're afraid of us now. They've realized that if they push too hard, we might become something they can't control." Han watched the Graxians return to their shuttle. "Good," she said quietly. "Fear can be the beginning of respect." The Graxian mothership maintained its orbit around Earth while a storm brewed inside. Commander Tak stood before the holographic projection of the High Command Council, 7 ancient Graxians whose metallic exoskeletons bore the elaborate markings of centuries of service to the Imperium. "Your report is disturbing, Commander," said Supreme Leader Vox, the eldest among them. "You suggest these humans possess capabilities that our standard protocols fail to detect." "Yes, Supreme Leader." Tak straightened his posture. "Science Officer Dal has conducted extensive new scans. The humans have a unique neural structure that allows them to not only withstand stress, but to thrive under it." The council members exchanged glances. One of them, General Murr, leaned forward, his battle-scarred carapace gleaming under the lights. "Then the solution is simple. If they grow stronger under pressure, we eliminate them completely before they become a genuine threat to Graxian expansion." Several council members nodded in agreement, but the head scientist, Rill, raised a hand. "That would be premature. This adaptive capability could be valuable to the Imperium if properly harnessed." "Valuable." General Murr's voice rose. "They damaged 3 of our assault craft. Their weapons pierced our shields." "Precisely," Rill replied calmly. "They accomplished this despite their technological inferiority. Imagine what they might develop if their ingenuity were directed toward Imperium goals." The debate continued for hours. Tak listened as the council split into clear factions. The military branch, led by General Murr, advocated for immediate orbital bombardment. The scientific contingent, including Rill, pushed for a cooperative approach. Finally, Supreme Leader Vox raised his hand for silence. "We require more information." "Commander Tak, you will conduct a full reassessment of human capabilities. Use every resource at your disposal. We must understand exactly what we are dealing with before making our final decision." Kim nodded. "Good. Let's keep it that way. For now." Science Officer Dal worked through the night in his laboratory aboard the Graxian mothership. The failed attack on the Siberian facility had changed everything. Commander Tak demanded answers, and Dal knew his position, perhaps even his life, depended on providing them. The standard bioscanners clearly missed something crucial about humans. Dal modified the equipment, recalibrating sensors, and adding new detection parameters. By morning, he had created a prototype that could penetrate deeper into human physiology than any previous Graxian technology. This had better work, he muttered to himself as he tested the device on tissue samples collected during their initial diplomatic meetings. The humans had unwittingly provided these samples through simple contact, skin cells on handshakes, hair fallen on chairs, even breath particles captured by air filters. The scanner hummed softly as it processed the samples. Dal's eyes widened as data began flowing across his screens. He checked the results 3 times, certain there must be an error. When he confirmed the readings were accurate, he immediately contacted Commander Tak. 20 minutes later, Tak entered the laboratory. his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the bright lights. "This had better be important," he said. "The High Command is demanding answers about our failure." "It is important, Commander." Dal's antennae twitched with excitement as he brought up the scan results on the main display. "I've developed a new scanning technology that penetrates deeper into human physiology, and what I've found is remarkable." "Get to the point," Tak said impatiently. "Humans possess neural pathways and stress response systems unlike any species we've encountered in our expansion." Dal brought up comparative images showing human cellular structures alongside those of other conquered species. "Look at these patterns. When subjected to stress, most species cells show damage, breakdown, failure. Human cells show something different." "What am I looking at?" Tak asked, moving closer to the display. "Adaptation." Dal highlighted several cellular structures. "Their cells don't just endure stress, they adapt to it, grow stronger from it. This isn't just a psychological response. It's encoded at the cellular level." Tak leaned forward, his three eyes narrowing. "Explain what this means in practical terms." Dal switched to historical data they had downloaded from Earth's information networks. Their history shows multiple near-extinction events: ice ages, plagues, wars. Each time, they survived and emerged more resilient. He scrolled through images of human disasters and recoveries. After their global conflicts, they didn't just rebuild, they created entirely new technologies, social systems, international cooperation frameworks. "How is this possible?" Tak asked, his voice quieter now. "Their evolutionary path was different from ours," Dal explained. "While we evolved superior physical strength and natural armor, they developed remarkable adaptive capability. They compensate for physical weakness with exceptional problem-solving abilities, especially under duress." Dal pulled up footage from the Siberian attack, now overlaid with new biometric data. "See here, when our ships appeared, their stress hormones spiked, but instead of causing panic, these chemicals enhanced their cognitive processing. Their reaction times actually improved under threat." Tak paced the laboratory, considering the implications. "Our standard dominance tactics won't work," Dal finished. "Humans don't break under pressure, they evolve." He hesitated before adding, "Most concerning is that they appear to function best when facing impossible odds. Their historical records show their greatest innovations occurred during their most desperate times." Tak stopped pacing. "You're telling me that attacking them makes them stronger?" "In a manner of speaking, yes." Dal brought up a new simulation. "Our conquest model relies on overwhelming force causing submission through fear, but these scans suggest that approach would backfire spectacularly with humans. They would unify, adapt, and find weaknesses in our systems we haven't even considered." On Earth, Captain Han was conducting her own investigation. She met Dr. Kim in his underground laboratory, where he had been studying pieces of Graxian technology recovered from the Siberian site. "They're developing new scanning equipment," Kim said without preamble. "One of our monitoring devices detected unusual energy signatures from their ship last night." "Can they block it?" Han asked. Kim shook his head. "Not with current technology. But that's not what concerns me." He showed her a simulation on his computer. "Based on the energy signatures, they're creating scanners that can detect neural activity and stress responses. If they succeed, precisely. They're judging us by Graxian standards." Kim leaned back in his chair. "It's like evaluating fish on their ability to climb trees." The negotiations deteriorated over the next 2 days. The Graxians grew increasingly impatient with human resistance to their terms. Earth's united delegation refused to sign away resources without meaningful exchange, despite veiled threats from LOM about consequences for non-compliance. On the 5th day, Commander Tak himself joined the negotiations, his gold-plated exoskeleton marking him as a high-ranking official. "Perhaps a demonstration of mutual benefit would help our discussions," Tak suggested, his voice smoother than LOM's but carrying an unmistakable edge. That night, as Han reviewed notes in her office, alarms blared throughout the facility. The communications officer burst in without knocking. "Captain, the Graxians have attacked the Siberian research station." Han rushed to the command center where satellite imagery showed 3 Graxian vessels hovering over a remote Russian military installation near Lake Baikal. Streaks of light, weapon fire, connected the ships to the snow-covered ground below. "Get me a direct line to Commander Tak," Han ordered, fury building inside her. Before the connection could be established, new information flooded the screens. The Russian commander's voice came through, surprisingly calm. "Shoal Command, this is Colonel Petrov. We were prepared for this. Defensive protocols are engaged, requesting permission to deploy countermeasures." The Global Security Council representative gave immediate approval. What happened next shocked everyone in the command center, perhaps none more than the Graxians themselves. The Russian facility, which had appeared primitive and defenseless on Graxian scans, suddenly revealed hidden capabilities. Advanced anti-aircraft systems emerged from concealed bunkers. EMP pulses targeted the alien vessel's navigation systems. A coordinated defense that had clearly been planned and practiced disabled 2 of the attacking ships before they could adjust their tactics. The 3rd Graxian vessel managed to land a direct hit on the main building, but even then, the humans adapted quickly. Emergency protocols activated, personnel relocated to hardened shelters, and the counterattack continued without pause. From her position in Seoul, Han watched as the smallest Graxian ship began trailing smoke, its engines damaged by the human weapons. The other 2 vessels moved to protect it, and within minutes, all 3 retreated to higher altitude, then disappeared into the clouds. "They're returning to their mothership," the radar operator confirmed. The room erupted in cheers, but Han remained focused. Casualties: 7 injured, no fatalities reported yet. The Russians had evacuation protocols in place before the attack began. "How?" someone asked. "How did they know?" Han exchanged glances with Dr. Kim, who had joined her in the command center. "Because we've been expecting something like this since day one," she said quietly. Aboard the Graxian mothership, Commander Tak reviewed the battle footage with growing agitation. Science Officer Dal stood nervously at his side. "Explain this," Tak demanded, freezing the image on a human defensive system that had pierced their vessel's shields. "Our scans showed nothing like this technology on their planet. It appears they concealed their true capabilities," Dal said carefully. "Impossible. Our bioscans showed them to be physically inferior in every way. Their reflexes should be too slow, their coordination too primitive for this kind of response." Dal hesitated before responding. "Commander, I believe we may have underestimated them." "How? Based on what?" Tak replayed the footage of humans working in perfect coordination, adapting their tactics as the battle progressed. "Where did this strength come from?" "Perhaps it's not physical strength we should have been measuring," Dal suggested. Tak turned to his science officer, anger visible in his posture. "Develop better scanning technology. Immediately. I want to know exactly what we're facing before we engage again." "Yes, Commander." Dal paused at the doorway. "And what about the negotiations?" Tak stared at the frozen image of the human defenses. "Continue them, but be prepared for a different approach. These humans are not what they appear to be." Back in Seoul, Han received a message from the Graxian delegation. They wished to resume negotiations the following morning. No mention was made of the attack. "They're reassessing us," Han told Dr. Kim as they prepared for the next day. "But they still don't understand what they're missing." Something like amusement flickered across Lum's features. "Perhaps you misunderstand. The Graxian Imperium spans 300 star systems. Our technology is thousands of years beyond yours. Equality is not possible." Han noticed how the aliens' guards shifted slightly, moving their hands to what she suspected were concealed weapons. She had expected this might be difficult, but the outright dismissal still stung. "We understand there is much we could learn from you," she said carefully. "But Earth has its own unique contributions to offer. We believe mutual respect forms the foundation of any lasting relationship. Lom made a gesture that might have been dismissive. Your physical frailty is evident in our scans. Your weapons are primitive. What could you possibly offer that would interest us? Perhaps that is something we could discuss in more detail, Han replied, keeping her voice steady despite the clear condescension. We've prepared facilities for these discussions and accommodations for your comfort during your stay. The alien turned to confer briefly with his companions in a language that sounded like metal striking metal. Han used the moment to exchange glances with her team, silently communicating that they should remain calm. We will examine your facilities, Lom finally said, and we will allow you time to consider your position. The Imperium can be generous to cooperative worlds. As the delegation led the aliens toward the nearby complex, Han walked alongside Lom. She could feel the alien studying her, probably noting her smaller stature, her lack of natural armor, all the things that made humans seem weak in their eyes. Your world is quite wet, Lom observed, and your gravity is lighter than our homeworld. We find it comfortable, Han replied. Does it cause you difficulty? No. Graxians adapt easily to new environments. It is one reason for our successful expansion. Han nodded. Humans are adaptable too, in our own way. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. Interesting, Lom said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. We will see how adaptable you truly are in the coming days. Han didn't respond, but she made a mental note of the thinly veiled threat. As they approached the building, she couldn't help but wonder what these aliens really wanted, and what would happen when they learned that humans weren't nearly as weak as they appeared. The negotiations entered their third day in the grand conference room of the Seoul International Center. Captain Han sat across from Emissary Lom, whose metallic skin reflected the overhead lights. Behind her sat representatives from 23 countries, all watching the exchange with growing unease. These demands are impossible, Han said, keeping her voice steady despite her frustration. She gestured to the holographic map Lom had projected. You're asking for exclusive mining rights to nearly 30% of our planet, including densely populated areas. Lom's three eyes blinked in sequence. We are being generous. Other species have been given far less favorable terms. You're asking us to relocate millions of people. Yes. Is that difficult? We would allow a standard planetary cycle for the transition. Lom sounded genuinely confused by her objection. The Russian representative leaned forward. And what exactly do we receive in return for these concessions? Our protection, Lom said simply. The galaxy is dangerous. Without the Graxian Imperium's shield, you would be vulnerable to species far less accommodating than ourselves. Han noticed how the alien delegation seemed surprised whenever humans challenged them. They hadn't expected resistance. They truly believed their technological superiority made negotiation unnecessary. During the lunch break, Han slipped away to the underground laboratory, where Dr. Minho Kim had been analyzing Graxian technology. The xenobiologist looked tired, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept since first contact. Tell me you have something, Han said, closing the door behind her. Kim nodded, gesturing to his computer screen. I've been studying the scanning device they left in our quarters, supposedly as a courtesy to monitor air quality. And it's not just checking air, it's gathering biological data too. Kim pulled up several charts. But here's what's interesting. It only measures certain attributes. Muscle density, bone structure, metabolic rates, things you'd evaluate in livestock or prey species. Han frowned. They're sizing us up. Exactly. But they're missing crucial data. Kim tapped another screen. Their scanners don't seem designed to detect or measure neural efficiency, adaptive response rates, or cooperative capability, areas where humans excel. They see our physical weakness but miss our actual strengths, Han said slowly. The massive Graxian ship hung in Earth's orbit like a metal moon. On the bridge, Commander Tak studied the holographic display of the blue planet below. His six-fingered hand moved through the light, adjusting the view to zoom in on landmasses and oceans. Another backwater world, Tak said, his voice raspy through his breathing apparatus. Hardly worth the fuel we spent getting here. Science Officer Dal approached with a data tablet. His exoskeleton clicked against the metal floor with each step, the light reflecting off his polished carapace. The initial scans are complete, Commander. The dominant species is surprisingly primitive, physically speaking. Tak took the tablet, eyes narrowing as he scrolled through the information. Soft-bodied, no natural armor, and their average lifespan is less than a century. He made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cough. How have they survived this long? They appear to have compensated with tool use and social structures, Dal replied. They've achieved space travel, but only to their own moon and a few unmanned probes beyond. Their weapons are crude, but could potentially damage our smaller vessels. Tak handed the tablet back. Not enough to concern us. Prepare the diplomatic vessel. We'll follow standard protocol for Class C civilizations, offer protection in exchange for resources and obedience. And if they refuse, they won't, Tak said confidently. They'll see our technology and understand resistance is pointless. Besides, our scans show they're physically weak. Their strongest members wouldn't match even our children in combat. Dal nodded, metal antennae twitching slightly. I'll prepare the team. Should we bring weapons? Concealed only. Let's not frighten them immediately. Tak turned back to the view screen. Choose a landing site near their largest governing body. Hours later, the sleek Graxian diplomatic vessel cut through Earth's atmosphere, its stealth technology temporarily disabled to allow Earth's systems to track its approach. Global news networks broadcast the descent live, crowds gathering in cities worldwide to watch on public screens. The ship landed in a clearing 2 kilometers outside Seoul, where the United Nations had hastily established an extraterrestrial communications center after first detecting the alien fleet entering the solar system 3 days earlier. Captain Sun Mi-han stood at the edge of the landing zone, flanked by representatives from 12 nations. Despite the summer heat, she wore her formal military uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. At 34, she was young for such a responsibility, but her background in linguistics and conflict resolution had made her the logical choice to lead humanity's first contact team. Remember, she said quietly to her team, show no fear, but also no aggression. We are representing all of Earth today. The ship's hull split open without a sound, revealing a ramp that extended to the ground. 4 figures emerged, each over 2 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in what looked like burnished metal plates, though Han suspected it was biological rather than artificial armor. Their heads were roughly triangular, with 3 dark eyes spaced evenly across what would be the forehead on a human. They move like they own the place already, whispered Dr. Park, the team's xenobiologist. Look at that confident stride. Han had noticed it too. The aliens walked with the easy assurance of predators, or perhaps colonizers who had done this many times before. There was something in their posture that reminded her of historical footage she'd seen of imperial powers arriving in lands they intended to claim. She straightened her back and stepped forward as the aliens approached. The tallest one, with gold-tinted plating and elaborate markings, stopped 2 meters away. I am diplomatic emissary Lom of the Graxian Imperium, the alien said, the words somehow forming in clear Korean despite the lack of anything resembling human lips. We bring greetings from the High Commander of the 7th Fleet. Han bowed slightly, keeping her eyes up. I am Captain Sun Mi-han of the United Earth Defense Force. On behalf of all nations of Earth, we welcome you to our world. The alien seemed to study her for a moment. Your planet has been designated as within Graxian expansion territory. We offer you the opportunity to join our Imperium as a protectorate state. Murmurs rose from the human delegation. Han kept her expression neutral. We appreciate your offer, Emissary Lom. However, Earth is an independent world with sovereign nations. We would be interested in establishing diplomatic relations as equals.